Hello, book lovers, and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Perkins, and today I'm talking to author Diane Metzger. Diane is the author of Willow Bend, Welcoming Our Soldiers Home, an historical novel set towards the end of the American Civil War. There's an interesting story behind Diane's reason for writing the book. Hi, Diane. First of all, welcome, and thank you for coming to chat with me on Book Talk Radio Club.
Hi, Claire. This is a very exciting experience for me. I've never done this before.
Oh, well, you know what they say, it's always a first time for everything. So, Diane, as I mentioned in my introduction just now, there's a story behind your story, as it were. Would you like to tell Book Talk Radio Club's listeners the reason why you set your book in Willow Bend?
Yes, this is based on the little village where my parents and my grandparents lived, and I've always had an emotional attachment to it. I just took the same village and renamed it.
Okay.
Every time I go back to Michigan, I visit this little village. I remember being there just as a really little girl.
Uh-huh.
But during my genealogy search, I found out that my great-grandfather had enlisted in the Civil War while he was in New York. But when the war ended, he moved to this little village to be near his two married daughters.
Ah, so that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So, but nowadays one can trace one's genealogy very easily online. How did you go about it 15 years ago? Where did you start your search?
Of all the times to begin my search, my husband and I were in Germany for 3 years when he was stationed in the Air Force.
Okay.
The only information I had was the name of a small village in New York. It's called Governor.
Right.
I wrote a letter in care of the county clerk, and much to my amazement, a man hand-wrote a long letter back to me.
Wow.
He dug through the records. He even went out to the cemetery, brushing off snow, and he wrote down the names and dates and birth dates and sent them to me.
How nice.
Yeah. Years later, I found a cardboard tube in my garage, and there were his letters. I thought I'd lost them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then later, I finally got a computer.
Uh-huh.
I taught myself slowly by posting questions on genealogy and Civil War websites.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
The book introduces the reader to some of the soldiers returning to Willow Bend after the Civil War has ended. You'll also meet soldiers who had never heard of this village but ended up in unusual circumstances. What are these unusual circumstances?
Well, first of all, we have Johnny. He was a sharpshooter in the Civil War. At the end of the war, he finds a man that's about to be attacked. And when he tries to defend him, he gets shot in the process.
Right.
Both of them end up being nursed by a woman named Elizabeth. She's a widow with two little kids. Once he feels better, he offers to escort Samuel back to his wife and son, and they live in Willow Bend.
Ah.
And then we have Elizabeth, who is the nurse that was taking care of him. During the weeks that she was nursing him, she started getting attracted to him.
Mm-hmm.
But she overhears him saying he wants nothing to do with marriage or children because he doesn't trust women. So the doctor that she works for has another doctor friend in another village that's looking for a nurse. He sends a telegram and she's offered the job. She buys 3 tickets for Willow Bend without explaining to Johnny that she's leaving.
Mm.
She has no idea if she's going to the same place he is. Then we have Danny, who reminds me of my great-grandfather. He was shot in the wrist with a mini ball, and his left hand and arm are useless. He talked the medics out of amputating it. He wrote to his special girl, Mandy, and she wrote back that she's just happy that he's alive. When he finally reaches their village, she's on the front porch watching him. She looks down at his arm, and she turns her back on him.
Yeah.
He's devastated, but he doesn't blame her. He starts walking, and a few days later, a friendly farmer offers him a ride in his wagon. He ends up giving him a job, and he lives right outside Willow Bend. And Sarah is a school teacher in another state. She gets restless and sends a letter to her friend that works in a hotel in Willow Bend, and she asks if she can come and visit her. And she said, of course she can. Sarah She's very unusual. She was raised as a tomboy by her father and brothers. Her mother died in childbirth. She could shoot and ride bareback as well as her brothers.
Mm.
And as a child, her idea of taking a bath was to jump in the creek with her clothes on. She has a big heart, but doesn't know how to be ladylike.
So tell me, many of the soldiers returned with physical and emotional wounds, much like today's soldiers, except they didn't have the medical knowledge and support groups that we have now. I didn't realise that towards the beginning of the Civil War, there were organisations of trained nurses in the USA. It took the devastation of the Crimean War 7 years prior to that and the appointment of England's Florence Nightingale in an official capacity to lay the foundation for modern nursing concepts and trained nursing care. It must have been absolutely awful.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand about the instruments had to be cleaned before they operated on the next person.
No. Ooh.
It was horrible. A lot of people died just from the infections.
Yeah, horrible. So you've told me about some of the characters in Willow Bend. I know one of them. He has a burned face or something explodes. A cannon explodes.
Right. Franklin was lighting a cannon.
That's
and
right, Franklin. Yeah.
It burned his face and chest and arms.
Oh, awful. You know, it's amazing. All these years later, there's still wars. Okay, now we have hopefully clean hospitals, but it's still the same horrors that go on, isn't it? Still the same horrors. I read on your blog that one of your friends went through your book with you one day, and you were both keeping track of humour, romance, suspense, and heartwarming scenes. And heartwarming came out at the top, which is what you wanted. Why was heartwarming so important when writing your novel, Diane?
Well, as a young girl, starting around 5th grade, I guess, I was really shy and I was lonely and unhappy, and the only thing that brought me any pleasure at all was to read.
Right.
I'd go to the library and get an armload of books and go out in the woods and just read and read and read. And it just made me feel good. A lot of the books, if they had a happy ending, it kind of gave me hope that maybe someday my life could end up like that. And I realized that throughout all these years, a lot of people don't realize you can say the slightest thing to somebody, just pat them on the shoulder or listen to them when they look sad.
Mm.
You can change their whole life.
Oh, absolutely. What you don't think is a big deal. A little act of kindness can make the difference in someone's life, totally.
Right. That's true.
And to have wonderful books with a lovely ending is a pure form of escapism as well. As you said, you weren't happy and you could escape into a book and it gave you hope. I totally understand that. So,
Right.
Is your novel a standalone, or will there be more books about life in Willow Bend?
Well, this was always going to be a series.
Okay.
And I told my young friend Isaac that I've read thousands of books in my lifetime, and many of them were in a series. But when I got to the last book of the series, I was miserable. I didn't want the books to end.
Mm.
And I told him one day, I said, as long as my readers want another book from me, even if I'm in an old folks' home, I'll keep writing. He thought that was funny.
I like that. So how many books in the series do you think there's going to be, or are you just going to keep writing and see how it goes?
I would love to do 6, 8, something like that.
Right.
I have a big imagination, so I think I could keep going, but it all depends on my readers.
And it all depends on the characters as well. I mean, I've talked to a lot of authors, interviewed a lot of authors, and they say that in the end, the characters take a life of their own, and they end up telling the author the story.
I know. What I'm trying to do is to find people like military people.
Right.
For someone is going through PTSD.
Yeah.
And they feel like their life is over. But Franklin, in my book, little by little, God uses him. He brings people into his life.
Yeah.
And turns around, Franklin's helping other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of bad comes good.
That's exactly right.
So where can Book Talk Radio Club listeners purchase Willow Bend?
Well, they can go they can go to the website that you created for me.
To your Book Talk Radio Club page, yeah.
Right, and you can just click on my blog.
Right.
And then there's a button there that said buy now.
Okay. And you're going to be selling all your books, all the books in the series will be on there as well, yeah?
Yes.
Lovely.
I'm about 60% finished with book number 2 right now.
Oh, right. Well, you are doing well. All right, well, thank you, Diane. That was absolutely great. I look forward to chatting with you about the next book in this series soon. And thank you for your time. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Book Talk Radio Club. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Claire. I enjoyed it.
Good. That's lovely to hear. Bye now.
Bye.